guys, my name is Vish and this is Simply Vish. Today I wanted to talk about having a dog and some of the positives and some of the things that you should consider before getting a dog. I wanted to go through this because I feel like a lot of my friends right now are considering getting dogs, and I wanted to just talk about my experience and some of the struggles and some of the great things about having a dog. I also just wanted to create a video series to talk more about training Layla and some of the costs associated to having a dog, like recurring costs and the initial costs of buying all those supplies. So keep an eye out for those videos. If you are interested in learning more, please like, subscribe, and click that notification button so you know when the next video is going to come out. But yeah, I hope you guys find this helpful, and let's dive in. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about how I got Layla. I got her from Animal Rescue Foundation in Long Island, and she was only 3 months old. I've had her for almost 4 years now, and it is so rewarding to have her, especially during this time. It's so nice to have a companion at home with you, to cuddle, to spend time with, and to get me out of the house at times. There are definitely a ton of positives to having a dog, and to speak more to that, one of them has to do with productivity and creating a routine. Like, no matter what, Layla has to go in the morning and in the evening, so I have to make sure that I have time in the mornings and evenings to take her out for at least a 30-minute walk. Sometimes it's longer, but no matter what, I'm able to make that time for her. And I think it's really great when people can create a routine for themselves with their dogs, to be active. And a lot of people have, said the same thing. Having a dog has made them more active, has helped them have a healthier lifestyle. So that's definitely one of the positives. Another one is just generally like protection. Like, Layla is super timid and loving to everyone she knows, but if she ever feels like I'm in danger or if I feel uncomfortable, she is really protective and she will bark. And it's so nice to have that comfort living in the city. So that's another great reason to have a dog. It's just a rewarding experience to see them grow and learn when you train them, and it's fun too. Like, there are certain commands that you should definitely teach your dog to protect them, but there are other ones that are just for fun. Like, I taught Layla how to play dead and how to roll over and get her leash, and all of those aren't necessary, but it's really fun to just see her pick up on things. So those are some of the really rewarding aspects about having a dog. But some of the things to consider and the commitment aspect of having a dog, I wanted to go through as well. Along with dogs helping you create a routine, initially you have to make sure you have ample time for them. So I remember when Layla was a puppy, to get her house trained, you have to take her out more than keep her in, because that way it's less likely for her to have a mistake. Right? So when she went outside, I would always treat her. When she would go inside, I would not punish her, but say, no, this is bad. So she caught on to it. So you have to put your dog in situations where they will succeed, because in the end of the day, when they start seeing, okay, this is good, they'll understand that this is a habit that my owner likes, so I'll continue with it. So you have to be able to make the time for them to be in situations like that where they can succeed. So I would have to wake up early, like an hour earlier than I normally did, to train her, to make sure that she had that time outside to go and to feed her and give her enough attention. I was only 22 when I got her. So I don't know if this was necessarily the best time to get a dog, because it is a huge time commitment to have a dog. Your social life will definitely be impacted. So if you're planning on getting a dog in your 20s, you might not be able to go out as frequently as your friends are. You might not be able to go to happy hours or dates or travel as much if you are planning to have a dog, because especially when they're a puppy, they need a lot of time. They need time for training. They need you to be around. You know, dogs can get into the smallest things around the house. So you have to be around to make sure that your dog is safe, or you have to make sure that you're in a position where you can afford to get a dog sitter or have one of your friends watch your dog. I have no regrets because she's brought so much joy. I got Layla when she was 3 months old, so she wasn't house trained yet. She was still, you know, pooping and peeing all over the house. She was teething. All puppies end up going through those growing phases. So you'll have furniture being destroyed. You'll have shoes, clothes being destroyed, and carpets being peed and pooped on. You have to consider that's going to happen. And in the end of the day, they don't really have control over their bladders when they're younger, and that's something you have to teach them. When I had Layla, she destroyed one of my really expensive heels. She chewed through the entire heel, and I was upset, but in the end of the day, she was teething, and I think it's more on the owner rather than the dog, because she was teething. Rather than giving her like a frozen carrot, which I knew would comfort her teething, I just kind of had her roaming around the house so she wasn't occupied. And that's when dogs get destructive, when their minds aren't occupied, when they have a lot of energy, when they're teething. You have to be very attentive. You have to make sure that you have the time to be attentive to your dog and be aware of what's going on. Layla has some stomach issues. She has a really sensitive stomach to grain. There was a time where I was just trying to figure out why she was throwing up all the time. There was one time where she threw up 10 times in a row and I had to take her to the emergency room. Something similar like that has happened like a couple of times. And so all dogs aren't perfect. They're just like people, you know, we have our own health issues. And so you have to be understanding of that and be accommodating of that. So I have to be aware anytime we take her out to make sure she doesn't accidentally pick up or start chewing on leaves that could upset her stomach, or pick up on someone else's treats on the ground. It ends up causing her pain, and it ends up causing me trouble for having to, you know, take her to the hospital or take her out more often. When Layla was a puppy, I took her to a park, and it wasn't a dog park, but there were a lot of dog owners that would take their dogs to the park, and before 9 a.m. at the park, you could let your dog off leash. So I thought this would be a good situation to socialize her, and it ended up being a really traumatic experience for her because she had a larger dog chase her, and it scared her, and she ran out of the park all the way back to my apartment. And that was a really scary experience for me too, because I ended up not taking her to the park for months after that. She ended up being scared of other dogs for a while, and she would bark at any dog she would see, and all of her hair would go up. And that's something that you have to consider, is like, you have to be very attentive, very aware of what's happening with your dog. And they might have traumatic experience, but rather than sitting with that trauma, you have to work with them to get better. And I let her sit with that trauma, and until maybe like 6 or 7 months ago, she was still really scared of dogs. And what's helped me is I would slowly let her have more and more interactions with dogs. One of my friends has a dog as well, and we slowly increased the interactions that she would have with our friend's dog, and then she started to get comfortable with, you know, smaller dogs. Eventually, I worked up to letting her sniff other dogs when you walk past them. And then now I actually take her to the dog park once in a while, and she seems pretty great with the other dogs. And I know that a lot of trainers recommend not taking your dog to a dog park, but it's been super helpful with getting her comfortable with other dogs. And what I do though, before actually going in, is I will kind of check and see what the characters are in there, and whether there are any dogs that are really like playing rough or bullying other dogs. Layla, sick, good girl. That are bullying other dogs there, because then I won't let her in. So I think it depends on your comfort level, but it's helped her a lot in terms of getting more comfortable with larger dogs. So it's been really good, and I'm really happy that we've made that progress. But it's super important to socialize your dog and put in that time. If you don't put in that time in the beginning, then it'll put you in a bad situation like the one that I was in, where Layla would not be comfortable with walking by other dogs even. It would be frustrating because I would have to walk to the other side of the road to make sure she wouldn't bark or lunge. If I couldn't walk on the other side of the road because there was another dog there, I'd have to kind of loop around cars. And so you have to be patient, you have to be willing to work with them and put in that time initially rather than waiting later and having to deal with it when they get older, because it definitely took Layla a lot more time to feel comfortable with other dogs than it would have if I continued to socialize her when she was a puppy. You have to make sure that you have the budget to train them and take them to training classes if you need to. I think I've spent over $3,000 on training Layla, which is crazy. I sent her to a boot camp because I didn't know what to do and how to help her. I would take her to a puppy training program when she was maybe 4 or 5 months old through Petco, and that costed like I think $300 or $400. Training. Layla, come here. It's okay. Come here. Go, girl, come here. Go. Training your dog is super important. Layla also has a bit of separation anxiety, so she'll get anxious, she'll cry if things are changing, if people are moving around and like leaving, she'll get sad. So you have to be flexible with your dog, try to work with them, try to comfort them, because they have their own personalities, they have their own, emotional states where they could be super timid and cuddly one minute and then really hyper the next minute and sassing you. Like Layla is super talkative, so she won't bark, but she'll just kind of chomp. It's funny, but it's hard to not encourage that behavior, but it's also not great when she does that because she's trying to get my attention and trying to kind of assert dominance in certain scenarios. So you have to try to understand your dog. You have to put in the work to train them, to bond with them, to work through their problems with them so that they can grow too. I mean, overall, having a dog is such a rewarding experience. It's definitely a time commitment, it's definitely a financial commitment, but if you're willing to make it, you will gain so much, like an amazing companion. You'll have a pet that loves you unconditionally, and you'll grow through the process too of, creating a routine, being more active, and seeing your work literally into fruition and seeing how your dog improves through all the work that you put in. Those are some of the things that you should consider and think about before getting a dog. This is just based on my experience, and I'm definitely not an expert, but I wanted to kind of share my experience with you guys so that maybe you can think about all these things before you decide to buy or adopt a dog. And please please subscribe, comment below about your experience with your dog or any questions you have. I'm happy to help and answer in any way I can. And keep an eye out for my next videos. Like I said, I'll be going into more detail and doing a little video series about my experience with Layla in terms of training and the overall cost associated to having a dog. But I hope that you guys all find ways to find happiness every day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye. Say bye. Yeah. Layla, come here. Come on. Up. Come here.